Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Cornerstone, the show where we attempt to navigate our culture through a biblical lens. As always, and until further notice, I am your host, Shane Kai. I'm going to have to keep myself limited here because I don't want to spend too much time out here. People are waiting for me. Before we get started, what was the memory verse last week? Does anybody remember? It was Matthew 6:26. Look at the birds in the air, for they do not reap, nor do they sow, nor do they gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father cares for them. Are you not of much more worth than they? As you can clearly tell, I'm not inside my room. I am in the national park known as Joshua Tree. I've been spending the day here just for fun, climbing rocks, hiking, and enjoying God's creation. This is quite honestly one of my favorite places in the world, although to be fair, I haven't been to many places in general. If you've never been to Joshua Tree, it's named after the type of tree that is unique to this park called a Joshua tree. They often have many branches twisting and turning in many different directions. They often look more like cactus than actual trees, but I can assure you they are trees. This park is also unique just because of all of the giant piles of boulders all around. You can see some behind me, and we're currently inside of a small cave made up of these giant boulders. These have been used for rock climbing, hiking, and bouldering for a long time. In fact, I wanted to take today's episode to tell a little bit of story about myself. The first time I came to Joshua Tree was with the Webelos, which is a section of Cub Scouts. It's the last section of Cub Scouts before you pass over into Boy Scouts. When I came here, I was with my dad, one of the few trips that my dad went on with me, and with the rest of the Cub Scout troop as well as the Boy Scout troop, although we were camped in separate areas. We did get to hang out, climb rocks together throughout the day. My friend, who you all know, Ben, was there with me. He was a Boy Scout at the time, and we got to have a lot of fun together climbing rocks. I believe his older brother Josh was there, and he really introduced this place to me because I had never seen it before, and I knew from the moment I stepped into this place and started climbing the rocks that it would not be the last time I'd show up. And true to my word, I have been here more times than I can count. For a good 8 to 9 years, in fact, I went once a year in November. That streak has since been broken for various reasons, but I absolutely love this place. I just love climbing rocks. I love finding new ways to get to the top of a rock and pushing myself to the limit, exercising, and getting used to taking pathways that aren't necessarily the easiest path. But anyway, on with my story. So, myself and the rest of the troop were hanging out at Joshua Tree. It's a fun day. I have a fond memory on that camp out because I remember finding a part of the park where there were these giant rocks, but the formation they made was the special part. And they made this giant bowl, almost like a coliseum. And I remember climbing up and over the rocks and seeing all of my fellow Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts all in different areas of this so-called coliseum. And it was just truly magical. It felt so magical. It felt like we were all meeting as some sort of secret society. Since then, I have not been able to relocate that area of the park, which makes me a little sad. Towards the end of the night, the Boy Scouts are getting their grub boxes, which are basically these giant wooden crates that hold all of their cooking materials. Not the food itself, but just the pots, the pans, the stove, all that kind of stuff. And Cub Scouts had their own grub box, but it was much simpler. So the Boy Scouts were getting their food ready. I believe they were making chili and hot dogs. And the Cub Scouts were trying to figure out what to do. Now, Joshua Tree is very cold at night, especially during the winter. It can drop to below freezing temperatures. And it happened to be a very cold season at Joshua Tree this time around. So what we decided, it actually was not my decision to make, but I certainly didn't help. The Cub Scouts decided to get back into their cars and drive into town to get food. And we stopped at a little place off the side of the road, and we all got pizza. And it was fun. But I found out later, after the camp out had finished and we had all gone home, I found out that the Boy Scouts who had braved the cold and the harsh wind came up with a funny name for us Cub Scouts. And my friend Ben had to remind me what this name was. They called us the Chuck E. Cheese Patrol because we were wimps. And I look back on that and I'm like, man, I know I was just a kid, and I know that I didn't really have the deciding vote in the decision to go get pizza or whatever, but man, I wish I stuck it out. I really wish I stuck it out because, having that name is like degrading. And we had that name for a little while afterwards. Eventually I escaped that title and became my own person. See, Boy Scouts was an awesome experience for myself, and I truly wish that every boy could grow up in Boy Scouts, but unfortunately that is not a reality that we live in anymore because of the direction that the association has taken. And I believe they've even gone bankrupt. They've declared bankruptcy because of all the weird decisions they've made. But I truly believe that as a father, not me as a father, but just in general, if you are a father, if you take the initiative, you can do Boy Scout things with your son, and you can get together with other fathers and their children, and you can sort of create your own community, your own little troop. And that is something that I want to do now. When I was younger, I wanted to have kids and put my kids through Boy Scouts, assuming they were boys, of course. And now that I realize that's not a possibility, my mind has shifted, and I go, you know what? I still want to do those things, but I want to do it on my own. I want to go buy like an old Boy Scout handbook off eBay or something and just teach him everything I was taught, and make him do all the things that I had to do. Basically make him my own version of an Eagle Scout without being a part of the association or anything like that. But even if you're not willing to go that far into it, I think that fathers should spend more time with their sons and their daughters as well, but I'm speaking specifically to the boys. You need to spend more time camping. You need to spend more time hiking, roughing it. Look, I'm a big advocate for video games, but growing up on video games is not the best way to live. Video games are great, but I'm so happy that I didn't necessarily grow up on them. I grew up on the outdoors, and I grew up on camping and hiking and, like I said, roughing it, aside from that one Chuck E. Cheese Patrol moment. So I just encourage everyone, when you get older and you have kids, don't let your kids be lazy. Don't let them live life inside all day, because we're already starting to see signs of that. We haven't quite reached that point yet, but I think in the next few generations, we're going to have kids who have been completely raised by the internet and the devices that they have. And I'm not trying to be some old boomer who's anti-device. I'm just saying you need to grow your kids up outside, and you need to instill some character in them. And that means you need to put them through rough situations. Hi. So when I recorded that video in Joshua Tree, I didn't have a lot of time on my hands because I was part of a church group and we were employing the buddy system. And so while I was out there, I had people waiting on me, wondering what I was doing. So I wasn't able to record a full episode. I missed things like the devotional and the prayer. And at first I thought, oh, who cares? I'll just make an episode where there's no devotional, no prayer. But as I was editing it, I'm thinking, no, this just doesn't feel right. So I'm here at home a week later, and I am here to give you guys a quick devotional and a prayer request for this episode. Our devotional is in Psalm 103, verses 10 and 11. He has not dealt with us according to our sins, nor punished us according to our iniquities. For as the heavens are high above the earth, so great is his mercy towards those who fear him. In my eyes, this verse is used as an act of praise to the Lord, and more specifically, the Lord's mercies. It's proof that God has not condemned us according to the laws that we've broken, because if that were the case, none of us would be saved. I think I might have touched on this in previous episodes, but there are so many verses in the Bible that touch on this, and they're all just an act of praise and an act of thanks, and just saying, thank you, Lord, thank you for your mercy and for your grace. Thank you for your ultimate blood sacrifice. Thank you for everything, because without it, I would not be able to receive any forgiveness. I would not be forgiven, and I would not be saved, and there would be no salvation. So these verses are just an act of praise, saying, God, thank you. Thank you that you haven't condemned us according to the law. Thank you that your mercy endures forever. In verse 12, if you go on, it says, as far as the east is from the west, so far has he removed our transgressions from us. Not much else you can say. It's just, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for forgiving me. So I encourage you, the next time you say a little prayer to yourself, thank him. Thank him for even offering salvation in the first place, based on nothing more than just the accepting Jesus into your life. Not based on the law, not based on rules or following all these guidelines and making sure your life is perfect. Because if that were the case, no one would be saved. We would all be damned to hell. So thank the Lord. The next time you pray, thank God. God, thank you for not punishing us according to our iniquities, as verse 10 says. Thank you for your mercy. So that's all I wanted to say for this devotional. As for our prayer request, let me grab my notebook, actually. I have prayer requests in it. Oh, it's in my car. Dang it. Maybe I have something on my phone. I'm recording with my phone. Okay, never mind. Prayer requests. Oh, I forgot the memory verse. Okay, well, if we're going to do a memory verse, so we should make, what should we make the memory verse? Let's make it verse 11. For as the heavens are high above the earth, so great is his mercy towards those who fear him. Okay, Psalm 103, verse 11. That's our memory verse for the week. And then as far as prayer requests, let me think. Come on, there's got to be something. Well, I guess I could pray for myself, but it's not really for myself, actually. It's kind of for two people. So, okay, so for my prayer request this week is, half of it is for myself, but another half involves another person. So the prayer request for this week is for my dad. My dad and I, his name is Thomas, or Tom, we do not have the best relationship. We are not close. We butt heads a lot because we work together, not by choice, but that's just how it is. And while we're not necessarily mortal enemies or anything, you know, we have good moments together. There are a lot of moments, more moments than good moments, that are bad. And I'm probably not explaining this correctly. Let me actually just start over. My dad and I don't have a great relationship. We never really have. And I truly don't believe we ever will, now that I'm almost 25 years old. I know that things can get better, but I don't think that I'll ever have a really close relationship with my dad unless something major changes. I'm often reminded by my friends, although you may not like your dad that much, or, you may have problems with him, or you may butt heads with him, but at the end of the day, you need to be praying for him. And I'm like, oh, really? I got to pray for my dad? And they're like, yes, you got to pray for your dad. I'm not implying that your dad is your enemy, but you still have to pray for your enemies. And that's what they tell me. And so I go, fine. So, no, I don't want to be reluctant like it. I do want to be sincere. I know I'm kind of joking around here. I'm not being serious. I am being serious in saying that my dad and I are not close, but I'm not being serious when I'm saying like, oh, he's my enemy or whatever. He's not my enemy. I still love my dad. I still respect him to a certain degree, but our relationship is very unstable. So my prayer request for this week, I know I don't like to make my prayer requests about myself. I like to make them about other people, but this one's technically about my dad. So I just pray that God will work not only in my life, but also in my dad's life. I can't just pray for him and say, oh, I hope God changes him completely because he's awful. I don't want to say that. I want to say, I hope that God works in him. But simultaneously, I have to say, I hope that God works in me as well. Because I know I'm not doing everything correctly. And I can already think of several things that I know I'm really bad at. Like, for example, I am bad at scaling down situations. Like when someone starts yelling at me, I have the natural urge to just start yelling back at them. So I know I have problems too. And so I can't sit here and say, oh, my dad's the whole issue. It's not, because while I have my problems with my dad, I recognize that I'm not perfect either, and I need help too. So I just pray that my prayer request for today is that my dad and I will both be worked on by God, and that at some point in the future, maybe not tomorrow, we will kind of heal our relationship a little bit. I know that we'll never be super close, and I'm fine with that. But I hope at some point we can just have some kind of underlying mutual respect for each other. So, yeah, that's about it. So, anyway, thank you all so much for watching this video, this weird two-parter, two-scene episode. I'll see you all next week. If you like this video, subscribe. I'm at 45 subscribers now. I need 5 more. 5 more, and I've gotten 50. And I'll do a special episode for all you guys. If you have any questions for me, whether biblical, philosophical, cultural, or just personal, let me know in the comments. Any prayer requests that you have, put them in the comments and I'll include them in the video. Otherwise, I'll see you all tomorrow.